My name is Brandi Howard. I have two students currently enrolled in Hamilton County Public Schools. They're both in high school. They've been in public school their entire school careers, and we are public school supporters. I want to address the newly passed legislation, HB 580 and SB 620, prohibiting the teaching of a list of concepts, and I believe you've probably already read that list. But first, I wanted to take a second and answer a question that was asked at the last meeting. Where have parents been before now? Why are we just now showing up at school board meetings? I would say we've been classroom volunteers, room parents, team moms, PTO, moms and dads. We believed that our time was best spent doing those things while representatives and elected officials managed the running of our schools. So we did what we thought was our part and trusted professionals to do theirs. Then our world changed, of course, when COVID hit. We all became some version of homeschool teachers or facilitators, like it or not. While virtual school was less than ideal, it required parents to be more engaged and aware of what's being taught in our schools. Unfortunately, it wasn't always a good surprise what we saw. For many of us, it was a shock. Some people may say, shame on us. Parents have been hands-off as far as the content and material being taught to our kids. We thought they were being taught skills and facts. We were surprised to learn that sometimes, maybe too often, our students are being taught what to believe. They're being taught to believe an opinion, what they should think, instead of consistently being taught how to evaluate data and develop their own conclusions. Parents across the country have realized that their children are being taught inappropriate sexual content, not specifically in Hamilton County yet, thank goodness, and let's continue that, right? Students are taught anti-police, anti-authority messages, divisiveness, and that our country and her systems are inherently bad. That was my personal experience. What a disappointment for a public school supporter. So we now realize we have to be more engaged. We know that our state's passed legislation prohibiting the teaching of a list of concepts based on a critical theory framework, and we have questions. How will the existing materials and curricula, including supplemental materials, be evaluated to determine where these concepts are being taught and remove them? Will you invite parents to be involved in that process? I've heard the quick response from local officials that this legislation won't affect Hamilton County, this stuff's not being taught here. And it sounded dismissive, almost as though it would be silly to even ask the question. But I want to tell you why parents are asking. If they haven't had personal experience like ours, parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens have seen reports that Hamilton County teachers go through white privilege training, where messages include that white privilege is a legacy and a cause of racism. White privilege exists because of historic, enduring, systemic racism and bias. That message, if taught to students, would violate item number 2 of this new legislation. We've seen classic texts replaced with books like Just Mercy, written by a social justice activist, The Hate You Give, written by an activist and inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement. Both texts violate items 8, 10, and 11 in this bill. An honest assessment must be done. So now we have engaged parents, newly passed bill, questions about whether or not our district is in compliance, and parents want a voice. When making decisions about our schools, we hear you talk about what's best for students, a lot about what teachers will think. We ask that you remember to consider what parents want for our children. We entrust the schools with the education of our kids, but parents' rights don't stop at the school building doors. Parents still bear primary responsibility for the care, well-being, and education of our kids. So let's set aside the automatic denials that this stuff doesn't happen. Instead, let's put tools in place to identify and eliminate these flawed teachings, work together in good faith to ensure our children are not taught that their future is somehow limited by their original circumstances or the shade of their skin. Let's talk about hope, unity, opportunity. Teach our kids to work hard to achieve big dreams for their future, for our community, and for our country. Thank you.
Thank you.